Riding is a pretty unique activity. There's so much more that goes into good riding than just our physical skills or our techniques as a rider. There's this big picture. It's the interaction of like, how do we communicate with the horse? How do we let them know what it is that we want, whether it's on the ground, just even coming in and out of the pasture, working around the barn, or when we're actually riding and we want them to go into a different movement. We want them to go into a different speed, even as simple sometimes as, turning, or we have a pattern in our mind that we want to complete, but we've got to get the horse to go around and do it. I think some people think of the horse kind of like a furry motorbike. If they hit the right button, he's going to just do what they want. If I get my leg right, he'll do it. And some of that is true. So horses are trained to cues, and some of the cues, not many, but some of the cues are, kind of universal for how horses are trained. But it's really what makes riding special, because the horse has his own brain, his own mind. He learns just like we do, and they don't have universal buttons that are going to make them respond. And there's so much more that goes into their behavior than just their training too. So I'm Callie, and this is CRK Training, and I'm doing a little series over these next few weeks on understanding more of this big picture of riding and how you can use it to solve your own challenges with your horse. And I wanted to start today by just talking a little bit more about behavior. So when we're riding, so much of this is behavior. And I consider behavior to be pretty much anything that the horse does. So it can be what he's doing out in the field with his buddies. Behavior is how he acts in the stall. It's whether he goes forward, whether he refuses to go forward, if he bucks, if he has his head up, if he has his head down. It's all really kind of falls into behavior. And so much of our riding is communicating what behavior we want from the horse. So today we're going to talk more about what creates these behaviors, because as I just said, it is more than just where we put our leg or how much pressure we ask with. There really is a bigger picture to it. So let's take a look at the 4 main influences of behavior. So we have genetics, we have environment, we've got past experiences. So this would be the horse's past training, if he really understands that cue or that kind of button that you're trying to find. And then we have the horse's physical state. If he's comfortable, he's going to act in a different way than if he's not comfortable. If he's in pain, or he's stiff, or he's just not feeling great. So some of these things we can influence, and some of them we can't. We can't really influence our horse's genetics. The past is in the past, so we can't influence what's happened to him before, but we can, to a certain point, change his environment. And since a horse is under our care, or I should say if the horse is under your care, we can actually influence quite a bit of their physical state. Even beyond just caring for the horse in terms of like what he's eating every day, or is he in a stall versus turned out, when we're sitting on the horse and the way that we're changing our weight, or the way that we're moving on them, is also playing a role in, are they comfortable? Are they not comfortable? So some of these things we can influence. And if I just flip this page over here, this is kind of a wheel of horsemanship. These are the different things that we can influence. We have ourselves as a rider. This sums up not only our techniques and our skills of balance and being able to ride, but it's also how good are we at training? How good are we at understanding how the horse learns and being able to communicate what we want and essentially teaching him what we want. Then we have the equipment that we're using. We have the horse's nutrition, what he's eating, are his teeth in good shape, his feet, the environment that he's in. This, in this context, is like, does he spend a lot of time outside? Is he kept in a stall? Does he have a social life with other horses? Or is he alone and potentially more stressed? And then we have just his overall kind of systemic health and his body. Is he comfortable? Does he have back pain, or does he have soreness anywhere? So to start thinking about riding challenges, keeping in mind what influences behavior, and then also this bigger picture of different pieces that we need to look at when we're having a behavior problem. I'm going to go get Henry, one of my horses here, and I'm just going to talk through a little challenge that I had with Henry when I was bringing him back into work a few months ago. So now that you're thinking more like a trainer, I wanted to share a story of something that I've been working through with Henry. So I started riding Henry more regularly a few months ago. Until then, he'd been sitting for quite a while. Before that, he'd been my boyfriend's fox hunting horse. And when I first started riding Henry, when I would ask him for the canter, I would sometimes get quite a big response. He would throw his head, he would jump around, he would get kind of crow hoppy. And I went through the same process that I've been talking about here. So I asked for it a few times. It wasn't seeming to improve. So instead of just continuing to hammer at the canter, I actually took a step back and I worked on teaching him a few more of the basic responses that I would need to be able to get him into a better position for the transition into canter. So I taught him to move off leg. I got him softer as far as being able to bend a little better both directions. I got him softer in the bridle. I taught him that when I took bit pressure, he would stretch forward into that. So we worked through all these little things, and at the same time, I started really looking at Henry and trying to figure out if there was something that physically was also kind of limiting him or bothering him in that transition. So I took him to actually a chiropractic vet, and she found that Henry had quite a unique injury when he was a young horse. So looking at his pelvis, he is pretty uneven, and it seems that when he was young, he probably fractured his pelvis, and essentially his sit bone, the point of his hip, is basically broken off. So if we think about how that changes all the different attachments of Henry's muscles, it makes sense that it probably something could easily be pulling a little bit more when he goes into that transition. So again, I went down to a lower level of training, and I made sure I had the responses that I needed in the moment where I was having the problem. And then I also kind of took a step back and looked at the physical things. I had tried a few different saddles on Henry. I was regularly palpating his back to make sure that I wasn't having a sore spot cropping up. And because of the nature of his response, I actually went even that step further and had the vet look at him. She did a few things, gave me some exercises to do here that basically continued and deepened the work that I was doing with him under saddle with the bending and the stretching, and just physically helped him to get a little bit more comfortable. So I'm going to go with Henry now and just kind of show you how I still work through his canter transitions. So I make sure that Henry's nice and warmed up. So I'm just we've been warming up before we turn the cameras on to do this segment, but I'm gonna trot him around again. And I also always make sure that he's easily going forward within the trot. This is one of the most common things that I hear people struggling with is the transition into canter. But often when I go to look at these horses or I see the horses on video, I recognize that they actually don't have a very good go forward response even outside of asking for canter. So even they're going forward into trot, going a little bit faster or bigger within the trot is very limited for the horse. And we can work through these little training issues in easier ways. So for example, working on slow trot, big trot, slow trot, big trot. And now also, because I'm thinking more like a trainer and I'm kind of considering Henry, I'm going to ask for the canter in a place where he feels most balanced, which for him is just kind of right around here in this turn. So the next time I circle around there, I'm going to go ahead and ask for the canter. Canter. Good boy. Good boy. So we had a really nice soft transition there. I'm going to go ahead and bring him right back down to trot. Now we're just going to change directions. I'm going to balance his trot first. This is his little more difficult side. So now I'm using that response that I trained earlier, which is that I can lift the inside rein, and turn my wrist a little bit, and ask him to bring his nose slightly in the direction of the bend, in towards the left. And then when he does that, he reaches a little forward and down. So that brings him into a better shape to get the canter and also to get the correct lead. Canter. Good boy. And again there we had a really nice transition. His canter is not quite as even this direction. Try it. We saw I got a little bit hollow through the transition, but that's still part of the work for Henry in helping him to become as even as he can be, now knowing that he does have that injury. Good boy. But as we've worked along these different tracks, both in his training, helping him understand the responses that he needs to come into a better shape and a better balance for his transition, as well as working on that physical track to just help him get more limber, get in better condition physically, and get stronger in the right places, that he's able to balance himself and make that transition into canter much more smoothly. Working through training challenges is often a little bit of a process. Sometimes things are just really simple and they can be corrected or changed in one session. And sometimes with especially these movement issues, something like the canter transition, it took a little bit longer in order to improve that for Henry. And the short process that I went through with Henry here that I just kind of described as I was working with him, this is really what I go through with a lot of other horses in training journals. So you kind of get to come along with me as I'm working through their training, as I'm working through a variety of different challenges with them. So we're redesigning, kind of giving training journals a brand new look, and I'll have some more information on that program coming for you soon. So you can look for that if you enjoyed this video. Now I'd love for you to leave me a comment. So scroll down and just tell me one challenge that you've been having with your horse. It could be your own horse, or it could be one of the school horses that you ride at the local barn. But just one challenge that you're having, and thinking about this bigger picture, just what are some factors that come to mind that could potentially be part of this challenge or this problem that you're experiencing. So go ahead and scroll down, leave that comment, and then make sure to come back and watch again next week, because we're going to keep diving into this and help you identify the first steps to look at and to start working on in order to solve that problem.